The fifth balloon popped so loudly, the studio went silent. 5 heiresses stood frozen in humiliation, their designer dresses and family connections meaning nothing to the man walking toward the end of the line. Toward her. Tasha Reynolds, the wild card who'd been eating popcorn in the audience 20 minutes ago, now stood frozen with a red balloon trembling in her hands, watching this man eliminate every woman who was supposed to be perfect for him. The studio held its breath, and Haewon stopped inches from Tasha, his dark eyes locked on hers with an intensity that made her forget how to breathe. She held out her balloon, waiting for the inevitable pop, the polite rejection, the end of this insane detour her Saturday night had taken. But he lowered the pin. "I've spent years wondering what it would feel like when I found her," he said, his voice rough and raw in the dead silence. "And then you started talking, and my heart just knew." Tasha's pulse hammered, and her hands went numb. Besties, this one is wild. A CEO lies to his father and suddenly has 90 days to find real love. A nurse gets dragged onto a dating show as a wild card with zero preparation. 5 heiresses who paid their way onto the stage get rejected. And a man who just met a woman 15 minutes ago is about to risk everything on a feeling he can't explain. You're going to have butterflies. You're going to be screaming at the romance. And you're absolutely going to need to know if this gamble pays off. Hit that like button, subscribe, because this gets intense, and let's get into it. The lie slipped out so smoothly, Kim Jae-won almost believed it himself. Almost. Sitting alone in his corner office at 9:30 on a Tuesday evening, phone still warm against his ear, he stared at Seoul's glittering skyline and wondered when exactly he'd lost his mind. He'd lied to his father. Jae-won, his father's voice had been so warm, so hopeful when he'd asked the question. "Have you found her yet? The one your heart beats for?" It wasn't the first time someone had asked. His aunties asked constantly, armed with photos of eligible daughters from respectable families, each introduction more transparent than the last. But they asked with agendas, with merger possibilities dancing in their eyes, with the weight of family legacy and corporate expansion hanging in the subtext. His father asked differently. He asked like a man who'd loved deeply once and wanted the same for his son. He asked like someone who worried about Jae-won coming home to an empty penthouse every night, eating alone, sleeping alone, building an empire with no one to share it with. "Yes, Dad." The lie had slipped out so smoothly it terrified him. "I've found her. I was actually planning to tell you soon." The joy that had erupted on the other end of the line was immediate and devastating. His father, a man who'd barely smiled since becoming a widower 3 years ago, had laughed. Actually laughed. The sound was so foreign, so genuine, that Jae-won had frozen, unable to take it back. "Bring her home," his father had said, and Jae-won could hear him smiling. 3 months from now, our family dinner. I want to meet the woman who finally captured my son's heart." Now, staring at his phone's dark screen, Jae-won pressed his palms against his eyes and tried to remember how to breathe normally. 3 months, 90 days to find not just any woman, but someone real. Someone he could genuinely love. Someone he could bring home and introduce without the bitter taste of deception poisoning every moment. He'd built his reputation on integrity, on honest deals and transparent negotiations. The irony of lying about love wasn't lost on him. His office, usually a sanctuary of control and order, felt suffocating. The city lights of Seoul glittered outside, millions of people living their lives, and somewhere out there was supposedly the woman meant for him. He just had to find her, in 90 days, while running a conglomerate, and somehow make it real enough that his father, who'd spent 35 years in a love marriage, wouldn't see through it. Perfect. Jae-won loosened his tie and tried to focus on the quarterly reports spread across his desk. The numbers blurred. He lasted 3 days before admitting he needed help. Across Seoul, in a cramped but cozy apartment, Tasha Reynolds was facing an entirely different kind of pressure. "You're married to that hospital," Dee announced, dropping onto the couch with the dramatic flair of someone who'd been teaching high schoolers all day. "It's tragic. You're 26 and gorgeous, and the most exciting thing in your life is whether the vending machine on the 4th floor is working." Tasha didn't look up from her nursing journal. "The vending machine drama is very serious. Do you know how devastating it is to work a 12-hour shift and discover they're out of honey butter chips?" "Tasha, the betrayal is real. I'm serious." Dee snatched the journal away, ignoring Tasha's protest. "When's the last time you went on a date?" Tasha thought about it, really thought about it. "Houston, 2022. Oh my God. What? I've been busy, building a life in a new country, learning medical terminology in Korean, figuring out how to navigate a healthcare system that's completely different from back home. You know, minor things." Dee pointed an accusing finger at her. "You're using work as a shield. I'm using work as a career. You know what I mean." Dee's voice softened, the teasing edge giving way to genuine concern. The same concern that made her such a good friend, and occasionally an annoying one. "I love that you're dedicated. I love that you're building something here. But Tasha, you're allowed to want more than just professional fulfillment. You're allowed to want someone." Tasha took her journal back, but she wasn't reading anymore. The words Dee wasn't saying hung in the air between them. Dee was getting married in 6 months. She was deliriously happy, planning a life with someone. And maybe, buried under all of Tasha's very legitimate reasons for being single, was a whisper of loneliness she didn't want to examine too closely. "I'm not opposed to dating," Tasha said carefully. "I'm just not interested in forcing something that isn't there. Remember your coworker's brother? The guy who spent the entire dinner talking about his cryptocurrency investments? Okay, that was a miss. Or your fiancé's friend who asked if my hair was real." Dee winced. "I apologized for that one. I know you mean well." Tasha reached over and squeezed Dee's hand. "I do. But I'm okay. Really. If something happens, it happens. I'm not going to manufacture a relationship just to check a box." Dee was quiet for a moment. Then her eyes lit up with an idea that Tasha immediately distrusted. "What if we just did something fun? No pressure, no setup, just entertainment." "I'm listening, but I'm suspicious." "There's this dating show, Balloon Hearts. It's actually really well done, not trashy. They're filming this Saturday, and I got 2 tickets. We'd just be in the audience, watching other people navigate the awkwardness. Popcorn, drama, attractive people making fools of themselves. Come on, we're both off work. When's the last time we did something that wasn't meal prep and Netflix?" Tasha considered. It did sound harmless. And Dee had been incredibly patient with her constant overtime shifts and weekend studying. Just watching? No surprise setups? Just watching. Scout's honor. You were never a scout. Irrelevant. So you'll come? Tasha sighed, but she was smiling. Fine, but I'm not participating in anything. Obviously, you'd never agree to that. If either of them had known what Saturday held, Tasha might have said no. Then again, maybe not. Some things, she'd learn, were always meant to happen. 4 days after the phone call that upended his life, Jae-won sat in his office across from his younger sister and wondered if asking for her help had been a mistake. Hana was laughing so hard, she'd nearly fallen out of her chair. You did what? Are you going to help me or just mock me? Both. Definitely both. She wiped tears from her eyes, her whole body shaking with suppressed giggles. You, the guy who once negotiated a merger while the other CEO was actively yelling, panicked during a phone call with Dad? It wasn't panic. It was a momentary lapse in judgment. You lied about having a girlfriend. I'm aware. And now you have 83 days to find one. I can count, Hana. She grinned at him, and despite his stress, Chae-won felt a flicker of relief. If anyone was going to help him navigate this disaster without judgment, it was Hana. She'd always seen him as her brother first, CEO second. After their mother died, they'd clung to each other in ways they never talked about, but both understood. Okay, Hana said, pulling out her phone with the air of someone taking charge. We need a strategy. You're not going to find someone genuine through the usual channels. Everyone in our circle has an agenda. I'm aware of that too. So we need to think outside the box. She scrolled through her phone, face scrunched in concentration. Then she stopped, eyes widening. Oh, this is perfect. Why do you look so pleased with yourself? Balloon hearts. Chae-won stared at her. The dating show? Hear me out. Hana turned her phone to show him the colorful advertisement. It's actually well produced, not trashy. Small audience, real conversations, and you'd meet multiple women in one evening. You could actually talk to them, get a sense of who they are. It's efficient. Absolutely not. Do you have a better plan? I'll use a matchmaker, or a dating app. You don't have time to swipe through 1,000 profiles and go on awkward coffee dates for 3 months. You need options in one room, real conversations, and a decision by the end of the night. Hana's grin turned wicked. Plus, I already signed you up. You what? It's this Saturday. You're welcome. Chae-won opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. She wasn't wrong. He didn't have time for a conventional dating approach, and everyone in his usual social circle would see a relationship with him as a business opportunity. At least at a dating show, the women would be there specifically looking for connection. This is a terrible idea, he said. Probably. But you're out of good ones. Before he could respond, his phone rang. The special ringtone made them both freeze. The aunties, Hana whispered gleefully. Chae-won considered not answering, then accepted the inevitable. Hello? Chae-won-ah! 2 voices chorused in stereo, syrupy sweet and far too excited. How are you, darling? How's work? How's everything? He knew that tone. That tone meant his father had told them everything, and they were circling like sharks who'd scented blood in the water. Across the desk, Hana was biting her lip to keep from laughing. I'm fine, aunties. Work is good. We heard some very interesting news. Giggles erupted on the other end. Your father mentioned you found someone special? Chae-won pinched the bridge of his nose. Dad told you. Of course he told us. We're family. So tell us everything. Who is she? What does she do? Which family is she from? When can we meet her? The questions came rapid fire, overlapping, both aunties talking at once in their excitement. Chae-won caught Hana's eye, and she mouthed good luck with absolutely no sympathy. We're just starting out, Chae-won said carefully, trying to navigate the conversation without outright lying more than he already had. It's still new. How new? Where did you meet? Is she pretty? Of course she's pretty. You have good taste. Does she come from a good family? What's her background? Aunties, please. He tried to sound patient rather than desperate. I'll bring her to the family dinner in 3 months. You can meet her then and ask all the questions you want. 3 months? They sounded scandalized. That's too long. At least let us video call with her. Just a quick introduction. I'd prefer to wait for the dinner. Let us have some time to ourselves first. There was whispering on the other end, the kind of rapid negotiation his aunties were famous for. Then, fine. But we're holding you to the dinner. And Chaewon? Yes? We're so happy you're not settling for a business arrangement. Your mother would be proud that you're following your heart. The sincerity in her voice caught him off guard. Guilt twisted in his chest, sharp and uncomfortable. Thank you, Auntie. When he finally ended the call, Hana was watching him with open amusement. You're in so deep. Tell me about it. Good thing you have a plan. She waved her phone, where the balloon heart's information still glowed. Saturday, 7 p.m. Wear something that doesn't scream corporate takeover. Chaewon wanted to argue, wanted to find a better solution. Instead, he heard himself say, "What should I ask them?" Ask them? The women at the show. I need to know who they really are, not who they're pretending to be. Hana's expression softened. Ask them what makes them happy, not what they do, not where they're from. What actually makes them happy. Most people don't have a real answer ready. It was good advice. Chaewon spent the next 3 days preparing, like he was heading into a negotiation. He drafted questions, unique ones for each potential conversation, designed to cut through performance and get to something real. Hana helped him practice, playing the role of vapid socialite and ambitious gold digger until he could keep a straight face through almost anything. What neither of them knew was that across Seoul, 5 women from the most powerful families in Korea were preparing too. The Balloon Heart social media announcement had been carefully vague. A very special guest joining us this Saturday, a CEO from one of Seoul's top corporations, successful, sophisticated, and seriously looking for love. They'd released no photos, no name, just enough information to spark speculation. In the elite circles of Seoul, speculation turned to investigation. Phone calls were made, favors were called in, social media was scoured. The dating pool of eligible CEO bachelors from top corporations was surprisingly small. Even smaller when filtered for those who were actually single and around the right age. By Thursday, the name Kim Jae-won was circulating in group chats and private messages. By Friday, 5 women had secured their spots on the show through a combination of family connections, financial persuasion, and sheer determination. Choi Min-ji, whose family's telecommunications empire spanned 3 countries. Park Seo-yeon, heiress to a luxury hotel chain, whose Instagram following rivaled minor celebrities. Yoon Ji-ah, an actress from old money, who'd never needed to work, but chose to anyway. Han Ye-jin, daughter of a prominent politician with ambitions of her own. Lee Soo-bin, whose banking dynasty family had been strategically marrying into power for 4 generations. Each of them saw Kim Jae-won as an opportunity. Some wanted the merger potential, some wanted the status. Some genuinely found him attractive and intriguing. All of them arrived at the studio on Saturday evening, dressed to kill, prepared to win. What none of them expected was the wild card. Saturday arrived with the weight of anticipation and dread. Chaewon dressed carefully, choosing a dark suit that Hana had approved as handsome but approachable, whatever that meant. He arrived at the studio an hour early, was ushered backstage, and tried not to think about how surreal his life had become. In the audience, Hana claimed a front-row seat and vibrated with barely contained excitement. She'd always loved watching her brother navigate social situations with the same calculating precision he brought to business. This was going to be entertaining. Then the doors opened, and Tasha Reynolds walked in. Hana's attention snapped to her immediately. The woman was stunning in a way that had nothing to do with designer labels or professional styling. She wore a simple dress that complemented her deep brown skin, her natural hair framing her face in soft curls. And when she laughed at something her friend said, the sound was warm and completely unselfconscious. Hannah found herself staring. Found herself thinking, if my brother wasn't doing this ridiculous show, I'd drag him here just to meet her. She had no idea fate was about to take her seriously. Backstage, a producer glanced at the audience monitor and stopped mid-step. Wait, who is that? Her colleague looked over, saw Tasha settling into a third-row seat, completely unaware she was being watched. I don't know, but that's exactly what this show needs. Think she'll go for it? Only one way to find out. They made their way into the audience just as the pre-show announcements were starting, approaching Tasha and Dee with practiced enthusiasm. Hi, sorry to interrupt, the producer said with a warm smile. We have kind of an unusual request. Would you be interested in participating in tonight's show? Tasha blinked. Me? Oh no, I'm just here to watch. You'd be perfect. A fun wild card to shake things up. We'd even pay you just for appearing. I'm really not dressed for this, Tasha protested, glancing down at her simple outfit. I didn't prepare. I don't even know what I'd say. You look beautiful, the producer said sincerely. And honestly, the best moments on our show are always the unscripted ones, the real reactions. Dee grabbed Tasha's arm, eyes sparkling. Do it. Dee, when's the last time you did something spontaneous? Something fun and ridiculous and completely unplanned? Tasha looked between her friend's encouraging face and the producer's hopeful expression. Part of her wanted to say no, to stay safely in the audience where she could watch and judge and leave without consequence. But another part, the part that had moved halfway across the world to build a new life, whispered, "Why not?" I'm not trying to win anything, she said finally. I'm just there for fun. The producer's smile widened. Perfect. Come on, we'll get you set up. As Tasha was led backstage, Dee settled into her seat, with the satisfied smile of someone who'd just engineered something excellent. In the front row, Hannah watched the beautiful stranger disappear behind the curtain and felt anticipation coil in her chest. The show was about to get very interesting. Besties, wait. Tasha's backstage holding a red balloon in a simple dress like, "How did I get here?" And Chae-won has no idea the woman his heart's been waiting for just got thrown into the lineup. The chaos that's coming? Unmatched. If you're already hooked, smash that like button, subscribe so you don't miss what this man does next, and drop a comment telling me you're ready. Because what happens when he reaches her is absolutely unhinged. Let's go. Backstage was controlled chaos. Production assistants rushed around with clipboards and headsets. Someone was adjusting lights. And in the corner, 5 women stood in a line that looked more like a fashion runway than a dating show lineup. Tasha took one look at them and nearly turned around. Designer everything. Professional makeup that probably took hours. Hair styled within an inch of perfection. They looked like they'd stepped out of a luxury magazine spread, each one more polished than the last. When they noticed her, their expressions shifted from confident to confused, in perfect synchronization. A production assistant handed Tasha a red balloon. You'll stand at the end of the line. Just be yourself. Have fun with it. Sure, Tasha muttered, taking the balloon and moving to her designated spot. Just be myself next to Korea's next top models. No pressure. The woman beside her, all sharp elegance in a cream-colored dress that probably had a designer name Tasha couldn't pronounce, gave her a once-over that was barely polite. You're the wild card? Apparently. Interesting choice. The tone suggested it was anything but. Tasha bit back a smile. She'd dealt with worse than thinly veiled condescension. Try managing a code blue with a doctor screaming orders in medical Korean while 2 family members fainted in the corner. This was nothing. Places, everyone! A producer clapped her hands. "We're starting in 2 minutes. Remember, smile and be genuine. This is about connection, not competition." The woman in cream laughed softly. Of course, connection. The others murmured agreement, but Tasha caught the steel underneath their sweet voices. These women weren't here to make friends. They were here to win. She wondered what prize they thought they were competing for, then decided she didn't care. She'd agreed to this on a whim. She'd have a funny story to tell. And in an hour, she'd be back home in her pajamas watching Dee plan her wedding centerpieces. The lights in the studio shifted. Through the gap in the curtain, Tasha could see the audience settling in, the energy building. Her heart kicked up despite her determination to stay detached. Spontaneous was one thing. Standing in front of 100 strangers with a balloon was another. Then the host walked out, and the crowd erupted. Jisoo was magnetic, all charisma and warmth as she welcomed everyone to Balloon Hearts. She explained the format with practiced ease, her voice carrying that perfect blend of excitement and sincerity that made reality TV work. "Tonight, we have someone very special joining us. He's successful, he's sophisticated, and he's seriously ready to find something real." The audience leaned forward. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Kim Jae-won." The applause was immediate and deafening. Tasha couldn't see him yet from her position backstage, but she heard the reaction, felt the energy shift in the room. Whoever this guy was, he'd already won the crowd. Then he walked past their lineup to take his position, and Tasha understood. Devastating didn't begin to cover it. He moved like someone who'd never doubted his place in a room, all controlled power in a perfectly tailored dark suit. Sharp jawline, intense eyes that seemed to catalog everything in a single glance, and an aura of quiet command that made the air feel thinner. When he turned to face the audience, offering a small smile that didn't quite soften his features, half the women in the crowd visibly sighed. Next to Tasha, cream dress woman had gone completely still, her practiced composure cracking into genuine reaction. Down the line, the others were the same, all pretense of casual interest abandoned. Tasha looked at the man on stage and thought, well, this just got complicated. "Jae-won," Jisoo said warmly, "thank you for being here. Are you ready to meet your potential matches?" "As ready as I'll ever be." His voice was deep, measured, with an edge of dry humor that surprised Tasha. She'd expected corporate smooth. This was something more human. "Then let's bring out our ladies." They were ushered onto the stage in order, each woman's name announced with a brief description. Choi Min-ji, telecommunications heiress. Park Seo-yeon, Hotel Empire princess. Yoon Ji-ah, actress and old money darling. Han Ye-jin, political royalty with ambitions to match. Lee Soo-bin, banking dynasty legacy. Then, and our special wild card for tonight, Tasha Reynolds. Tasha walked out to polite but confused applause, acutely aware she was the anomaly in every possible way. She took her place at the end of the line, red balloon in hand, and made the mistake of looking directly at Jae-won. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Not surprise, exactly. Something more like curiosity, sharp and focused. Their eyes met for a heartbeat before Jisoo reclaimed everyone's attention. In the front row, Hana grabbed her armrest. Oh, this was going to be good. "All right, Jae-won," Jisoo said, gesturing to the line of women. "Take your time. Get to know them. Ask what you need to ask. And remember, you have that pin when you're ready to make your choices." Jae-won nodded, taking the decorative pin from her with the kind of careful precision that suggested he understood exactly how sharp it was. Then he turned to the lineup and started walking. He stopped in front of Min-ji first. She smiled at him, perfect and practiced. "Minji," he said, his tone polite but unrevealing. "Tell me something. What do you do when you're not working?" She didn't miss a beat. "I study market trends, actually. Emerging technologies, international expansion opportunities. I've been following your company's move into AI development. It's fascinating. I think there's incredible potential for synergy between our family's businesses, especially in the telecommunications and tech integration space." Her smile widened. It was a good answer if you were at a board meeting. Chae-Won's expression didn't change. "Thank you." He moved on. Seo-Yeon practically preened when he stopped in front of her. "What are you passionate about?" he asked. "Luxury," she said, without hesitation, her voice dropping into something that was probably meant to be seductive. "Beautiful things. Exquisite experiences. Life should be lived at the highest standard, don't you think? Why settle for ordinary when extraordinary is right there waiting?" Her eyes traveled over him slowly, deliberately. "I can always recognize quality when I see it." "Interesting." Chae-Won's tone was perfectly neutral. He moved to Jia. The actress had clearly prepared for this, but when Jae-Won looked directly at her and asked her to describe herself in 3 words, something in her brain short-circuited. "Oh, I'm elegant? And successful? No, wait, accomplished? Or maybe," she giggled nervously. "I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? You're very, She trailed off, flustered. The audience laughed good-naturedly. Chae-Won gave her a polite smile that didn't reach his eyes and moved on. Ye-Jin was ready for him. When he asked what she was looking for in a partner, she delivered her answer like a campaign speech. "Someone who understands that marriage is a true partnership. I have a 10-year plan that includes international business expansion, establishing a charitable foundation, and building a legacy that matters. I don't need someone to lead me or save me. I need someone who can walk beside me, or honestly, I'm perfectly capable of walking alone if necessary." She lifted her chin, proud and defiant. She was impressive, Tasha had to admit. She was also clearly not interested in a relationship so much as a strategic alliance. Chae-Won studied her for a long moment. "You sound very certain of your path." "I am." "Good luck with it." He moved to Subin. The banking heiress was composed, controlled, every inch the perfect society woman. When Jae-Won asked her what a perfect day looked like, she answered smoothly. A morning workout, a productive board meeting, lunch somewhere elegant, an evening gallery opening, dinner with influential people. Efficiency and elegance in balance. And where does joy fit in? Jae-Won asked quietly. Subin blinked. "I'm sorry?" "Joy, laughter, something that makes you feel alive, not just productive. Where does that fit?" She opened her mouth, closed it, genuinely uncertain how to answer. Accomplishment is joyful?" Chae-Won looked at her for another moment, then nodded and moved on. To Tasha. Up close, he was even more overwhelming. Tall enough that she had to tilt her head back slightly to meet his eyes, and those eyes were darker than she'd thought, intense in a way that made her heartbeat stumble. He held her gaze with the same focused attention he'd given the others, but something in his expression was different. Less guarded, maybe. More genuinely curious. "I don't think I caught your name," he said. "Tasha. Tasha Reynolds." "Nice to meet you, Tasha." He paused, and the corner of his mouth lifted just slightly. Not quite a smile, but close. "You look like you had a very different plan for tonight. What were you actually doing before you ended up here?" The absurdity of the entire situation hit her, and she laughed, the sound escaping before she could stop it. "Honestly, I was in the 3rd row eating popcorn and judging everyone else. My best friend dragged me here because she thinks I'm married to my job and need to get out more. I was perfectly content being a spectator. Then the producers ambushed me about 5 minutes before the show started, told me I'd be perfect as a wild card, and before I could properly say no, I was backstage holding a balloon. So here I am, wondering how I went from audience member to participant in under 10 minutes. The audience laughed. Jisoo was grinning, and Jae-won, for the first time all night, smiled for real. The transformation was startling, softening features that had been all sharp edges and control. "That's the most honest answer I've heard all night," he said. "Yeah, well, I didn't have time to prepare the corporate pitch." His smile widened just slightly. "What do you do when you're not being ambushed by dating shows?" "I'm a nurse." He went very still, his attention zeroing in on her completely. A nurse. 12-hour shifts, saving lives. You know, the usual. "Do you like it?" The question was simple, but the way he asked it, the genuine interest in his tone, made Tasha pause. She met his eyes and answered honestly. "I love it. It's hard, really hard sometimes. But it matters. I get to help people on their worst days, and sometimes their best days. It's real, you know? No performance, no pretending, just people being human, and me getting to make that a little bit easier." Jae-won held her gaze, and the moment stretched between them, charged with something Tasha couldn't quite name. The studio audience faded. The cameras faded. It was just him looking at her like her answer mattered, like she mattered, like he'd been waiting all night to hear something true. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I know." In the front row, Hana was gripping her seat hard enough to hurt. That's her. That's the one. Jae-won seemed to remember where he was. He blinked, refocused. "Last question. If I asked you to dinner after this, would you say yes?" Tasha's pulse kicked up. The way he was looking at her, dark eyes intense and focused entirely on her face, made her mouth go dry. She managed a grin that felt only slightly shaky. "Well, I wasn't expecting my Saturday night to go this direction, but yeah, I'd say yes." The moment hung there, electric and promising, before Jisoo stepped in with professional timing. "Wonderful conversations, everyone. Jae-won, I think you've gotten to know our ladies a bit better. Now comes the difficult part. Time to make your choices." The atmosphere in the studio shifted, anticipation crackling through the air. The 5 heiresses straightened, smiles bright and confident. They'd done this before, in different contexts. Job interviews, social competitions, family expectations. They knew how to win. Tasha just held her balloon and wondered if she should feel nervous. She didn't particularly. This whole thing was surreal enough that it didn't feel entirely real. He'd pick one of these gorgeous, accomplished, perfectly matched women, and she'd have a great story about that one time she was on a dating show for exactly 20 minutes. Jae-won walked back to the beginning of the line. He stopped in front of Min-ji, who held out her balloon with complete confidence. "You're brilliant and clearly accomplished," Jae-won said, his voice carrying in the quiet studio. "But I'm looking for a partner, not a business merger." He pressed the pin to her balloon. Pop. Min-ji's smile froze on her face, shock bleeding into her expression. "You can't be serious." But he was already moving to Seo-yeon. She looked genuinely baffled when he stopped in front of her. "You're stunning," Jae-won said calmly, "but I need someone who sees beyond the surface. Someone who wants to know me, not just what I represent." Pop. Seo-yeon's mouth fell open. "Do you have any idea who my family is?" "Yes." "Do you have any idea who you are without them?" He moved to Jia before she could answer. The actress was already tearing up, her carefully applied makeup starting to run. "Please, I got nervous. Give me another chance, I can do better." "You're lovely," Jae-won said, and he sounded genuine. "But I don't think we're right for each other." Pop. Jia made a small wounded sound, and stepped back, dabbing at her eyes. The audience was dead silent now, everyone leaning forward in disbelief. This wasn't how these shows went. The CEO was supposed to agonize, to go back and forth, to keep everyone in suspense. He wasn't supposed to systematically eliminate every eligible heiress in Seoul with the cold precision of a corporate restructuring. Ye Jin actually looked angry when he stopped in front of her. "Let me guess," she said sharply. "I'm too independent? Too ambitious? I don't need you enough?" "You don't need anyone," Jae-won said quietly. "You've built your entire life around not needing anyone. That's admirable. But I can't be part of a plan. I need to be part of a life." Pop. Ye-jin's jaw tightened. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe, but it's mine to make." He moved to Subin, who held her balloon out with shaking hands. She'd watched 4 women get eliminated and knew what was coming. "My family," she started, voice tight. "We can offer you connections, opportunities, a partnership that would benefit both our companies." "I'm not marrying a company." Jae-won's voice was gentle, but immovable. "I'm looking for a person." Pop. Subin stared at him, humiliation and anger warring in her expression, before she turned and walked off the stage with her spine rigid. The studio was completely silent. Every single heiress had been eliminated. Jae-won stood there for a moment, the pin still in his hand, then turned and walked slowly toward the end of the line. Toward Tasha. She was still holding her red balloon, eyes wide, clearly not expecting to still be standing. Her mind was racing, trying to catch up with what had just happened. 5 women, all gorgeous and accomplished, and from the right families, all rejected, all gone. And she was still here, the wild card who'd wandered in off the street, and he was walking toward her with an expression that made her forget how to breathe properly. "You know you can pop mine too, right?" she said, her voice coming out slightly strangled. "That's allowed. I won't be offended." Jae-won stopped in front of her, calm and composed, while her heartbeat completely betrayed her. "I know." Tasha held out her balloon, half expecting this was where the joke ended, where reality reasserted itself, and she went back to being the amusing footnote in someone else's love story. Jae-won lowered the pin. The air left Tasha's lungs. "My father told me something once," Jae-won said, his voice low enough that it felt like he was talking only to her, despite the cameras and the audience and the 100 people holding their collective breath. "He said I'd know the one my heart beats for, because my heart would tell me. I thought it was just something fathers say, pretty words that sound true, but don't amount to anything real." He looked at her, and Tasha felt pinned in place by the intensity of it. "But standing here, talking to you, I felt it. For the first time, I understood what he meant." His voice dropped even lower, rough around the edges with something that sounded like wonder. "My heart recognized you before my mind caught up." Tasha's world narrowed to his face, his eyes, the way he was looking at her, like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. "I'm not going to pop your balloon, Tasha. If you'll let me, I'd like to take you to dinner. Really get to know you. Not for a show, not for an audience, just you and me and actual conversation." He paused, and something vulnerable flickered across his features. "Will you give me that chance?" The studio was so quiet, Tasha could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. This gorgeous, powerful, impossible man was asking her, actually asking her, with an openness in his expression that felt more intimate than anything she'd experienced in years. "Yeah," she heard herself say, her voice soft but steady. "Yeah, I'll give you that chance." The audience exploded. "Okay, besties." Jae-won just walked away from 5 perfect-on-paper options for a wild card he met 15 minutes ago. She just said yes to a man she knows nothing about, except that he makes her pulse race. This is either the beginning of something beautiful, or it's going to be chaos neither of them saw coming. And that family dinner deadline, still ticking. Let's get back to it. Jisoo rushed over, her professional composure barely containing her genuine delight. Ladies and gentlemen, Kim Jae-won has made his choice. The applause was deafening, but Tasha barely heard it. She was still looking at Jae-won, who was still looking at her, and the rest of the world felt like background noise. In the front row, Hana was on her feet, clapping so hard her hands hurt, tears streaming down her face. She'd watched her brother navigate years of empty dates and corporate arrangements, had seen the loneliness he tried to hide behind success and duty. And now he was looking at this woman like she'd rewired something fundamental in his chest. Backstage, as the show wrapped and the audience began to filter out, Tasha felt the surreality crash over her in waves. 20 minutes ago, she'd been eating popcorn. Now, she had a date with possibly the most intimidating man she'd ever met. A man who'd just rejected 5 perfect heiresses on live television to choose her. So, Dee appeared at her elbow, grinning like she'd won the lottery. Still think coming tonight was a bad idea? I don't know what just happened. You just got chosen by the perfect gentleman. That's what happened. And before you spiral, I saw the way he looked at you. That wasn't performance. That was real. Tasha wanted to argue, but then Jae-won was there, having changed out of his suit jacket into just the white dress shirt with sleeves rolled to his forearms, and her brain forgot how to form coherent thoughts. "Hi," he said, and the formality from the stage was gone, replaced by something almost nervous. That was intense. That's one word for it. Tasha clutched her balloon, still red and intact. You really just eliminated 5 heiresses. I eliminated 5 wrong choices. His eyes held hers. Are you free right now? Because I know a nice place, quiet, good food, and I'd really like to continue our conversation without cameras. The words were simple, but the way he said them, low and certain, made heat crawl up her neck. There's a place in Gangnam, quiet, good food. Are you ready now, or do you need a few minutes? Now is good, Tasha heard herself say. 30 minutes later, she found herself in the passenger seat of a sleek black car, driving through Seoul's glittering streets with a man who'd upended her entire evening, and somehow it felt exactly right. The restaurant was tucked away on a side street, all intimate lighting and quiet elegance. The kind of place that didn't advertise because it didn't need to, where the staff recognized Jae-won immediately, but were too professional to show surprise at his companion. They were led to a private corner table, and once they were alone with menus and wine glasses, Tasha felt the weight of the moment settle over them. "This is insane," she said finally. "You know that, right? This whole night is completely insane." "I'm aware." Jae-won leaned back in his chair, his attention locked onto her with that same focused intensity that had arrested her on stage. "For what it's worth, I didn't plan any of this. The show or choosing? Me? Both. The show was my sister's idea. I was desperate and out of options. Choosing you was," he paused, seeming to search for the right words, "inevitable. The moment you started talking, everything else just became noise." Tasha's pulse kicked up. "You don't even know me." "Then let me." He leaned forward, and the movement brought him closer, close enough that she could see the exhaustion around his eyes, the hint of vulnerability beneath the composed exterior. "Tell me about yourself. Tell me why you came to Seoul. Tell me what makes you laugh and what keeps you up at night. I want to know all of it." So she told him about growing up in Houston's medical center, watching her mother work double shifts as a nurse and deciding that's who she wanted to be. About the opportunity at Seoul, the terrifying leap of moving across the world alone, about the loneliness of being perpetually visible, of standing out everywhere she went, of learning to navigate a culture that was beautiful and frustrating in equal measure. Chae-won listened like every word mattered, asking questions that proved he was actually hearing her, not just waiting for his turn to talk. And when she finally turned the questions back on him, he answered with the same honesty. He told her about his mother's death, about inheriting the CEO position years before he was ready, about the weight of carrying a family legacy while trying to figure out who he was underneath all the expectations, about his father's quiet grief and his auntie's loud concern, about Hana being the only person who still treated him like a human instead of a title. "She signed me up for that show without asking," Chae-won said, and there was affection in his voice despite the words. "Told me I was out of good options and needed to trust her. Remind me to thank her." His eyes caught hers, dark and intense in the candlelight. "She's going to love you. Fair warning, she's probably already planning our wedding." "Confident, aren't you?" "Hopeful," he corrected quietly. "There's a difference." The food came and went, course after course that Tasha barely tasted because she was too focused on the man across from her, on the way he smiled when she made him laugh, on the way his carefully controlled expression cracked open to show something raw and real underneath. When he told her about the phone call with his father, about the lie that had started this whole chain of events, Tasha should have been concerned. Instead, she was oddly touched by his panic, by his desperate need to make his father happy. "So you have 90 days to fall in love," she said, doing the math. "No pressure." 83 now. Chae-won's hand rested on the table between them, close enough to touch but not quite touching. "And Tasha, I'm not interested in faking this. If we do this, if you give me a real chance, I need it to be genuine. I won't bring you to my family as a performance. What if we don't work out? What if 83 days isn't enough? Then I'll tell my father the truth and deal with the consequences." His voice was firm, certain. "But I'd rather try for something real and fail than succeed at something hollow." Tasha looked at this man who'd walked away from 5 women who looked perfect on paper to take a chance on a wild card, and felt something shift in her chest. Okay. Let's try. Let's see what this is. But Jae-won," she met his eyes steadily, "I need you to know I love what I do. My work matters to me. I'm building a life here that I'm proud of, and I need that to be okay. I'm not interested in being arm candy or a trophy or whatever wealthy men usually want." "Good." He reached across the table then, his hand covering hers, warm and solid. "I don't want you to change. I want exactly who you are right now. Sharp edges and terrible work schedule and all." The touch sent electricity up her arm. His thumb brushed over her knuckles, a small movement that felt monumentally intimate. "I should warn you." Chae-won's voice dropped lower, rough around the edges. "I don't do anything halfway. If you say yes to this, I'm all in. Completely. You'll have every part of me that I know how to give." Tasha's mouth went dry. The intensity in his eyes, the barely leashed want underneath his controlled exterior, made her feel like she was standing on the edge of something enormous. "That's a dangerous thing to promise someone you just met," she managed. "I know." Hand tightened on hers. "I'm promising anyway." When he dropped her off at her apartment, Jae-won walked her to her door, proper and respectful, but the way he looked at her in the dim hallway light was anything but tame. "Can I see you again?" he asked. "Tomorrow?" "I work tomorrow. 12-hour shift. Then I'll meet you after. Bring you dinner. Keep you company on your break. Whatever you'll let me do." The hope in his expression, the genuine desire to be part of her world, even the unglamorous parts, made her decision easy. Okay, she whispered. Tomorrow. He smiled, and it transformed his entire face. Then he raised her hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to her knuckles that burned like a brand, and said softly, "Sleep well, Tasha. Dream of me." She did. She absolutely did. The next weeks unfolded in a blur of late-night phone calls that stretched until dawn, hospital visits where he showed up with food and flowers, and cooking disasters in her tiny kitchen that always ended in takeout and laughter. Hye-won was brilliant and funny, and surprisingly terrible at anything involving a stove. Dee grilled him the first time they met properly, firing off pointed questions until Jae-won had answered every single one honestly, never defensive. Dee pulled Tasha aside after and whispered, "Okay, he's perfect. Don't mess this up." Meeting Hana was easier because she already adored Tasha. "I knew it the second I saw you at the show," she'd said, hugging Tasha like they were already family. They navigated hard conversations too. Tasha shared the loneliness of building a life in a foreign country, the homesickness that surfaced unexpectedly, and the ache of being far from everything familiar. Jae-won opened up about the isolation of his position, never knowing if people wanted him or what he represented, and the exhaustion of being everyone's answer but having nowhere to ask his own questions. They learned each other in both the quiet moments and the loud ones. "Everyone thinks they know me," he said one night, lying on her couch with his head in her lap. "They see the company, the money, the family name. You're the first person in years who's looked at me and seen just me." "I see you," Tasha said softly, running her fingers through his hair. "And I like what I see." He looked up at her then with such raw vulnerability that she leaned down and kissed his forehead, his temple, the corner of his mouth, until he caught her face in his hands and kissed her properly, deep and slow and devastating. 2.5 months passed in a blur of stolen moments and late-night conversations. Somewhere between the hospital visits and the failed cooking attempts, between meeting each other's friends and learning each other's quirks, they'd stopped being two people dating and become something else entirely. Something that felt inevitable and right. It was Jae-won who said it first, on an ordinary Tuesday night, while they were doing nothing more exciting than folding laundry in her apartment. He looked at her across a pile of mismatched socks and said, "I'm in love with you. Completely. Just so you know." Tasha dropped the shirt she was holding. "You're telling me this while we're doing laundry? Would you prefer I wait for a more romantic setting?" "No." She crossed to him, wrapped her arms around his neck. "I love you too. Have for a while now, if I'm being honest." He pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. "The family dinner is in 2 weeks." "I know. Are you ready for that? Are you asking if I'm ready to meet your family, or if I'm ready for what that means?" "Both." Tasha pulled back to look at him. "I'm terrified, but I want to do this. I want to meet them. I want all of it." He kissed her then, soft and sweet, like a promise neither of them was afraid to make anymore. 1 week before the family dinner, Tasha called Jae-won at midnight, panic in her voice. "What if they hate me?" "Tasha." His voice was firm, grounding. "You're everything. They're going to love you. I promise." She chose her outfit carefully with Hana's help, an elegant dress that felt like her, but elevated. She selected thoughtful gifts, a beautiful scarf for the aunties, a first-edition book for his father. When Saturday arrived, Jae-won took her hands in the car before they drove to his family home. "Whatever happens tonight," he said seriously, "you're mine and I'm yours. That doesn't change based on anyone else's opinion. Possessive much?" But Tasha was smiling. "When it comes to you, absolutely." He kissed her knuckles. "Ready?" "No, let's do this anyway." The Kim family home was beautiful. Traditional architecture blended with modern comfort. Jae-won led her to the door, his hand steady in hers. His father answered, and his first words were, "Tasha, finally." He pulled her into a tight hug. "Thank you for making my son smile again. I'd forgotten what that looked like." Tasha's eyes burned. "Thank you for raising someone worth smiling for." He pulled back, hands on her shoulders, tears in his eyes. "My wife would have loved you. She always said the right person makes you braver, kinder. I see that in my son now." The aunties descended next, all warm chaos and rapid-fire questions. They delighted in her answers about nursing and Houston. "A real profession," one aunt exclaimed. "Not just spending family money." Hana appeared, hugging Tasha. "Told you they'd love you." Dinner was lively and chaotic in the best way. When Tasha explained the balloon show, both aunties cackled with delight. "He rejected 5 heiresses for you," one said approvingly. "Shows he has sense." Later, the aunties pulled Tasha aside. "We were worried he'd choose someone cold, someone who wanted the Kim name, not our Jae-won. But you look at him, the way his mother looked at his father." "He is precious," Tasha said quietly. "And he matters more than I know how to put into words." They hugged her. "Welcome to the family." When Jae-won's father asked to speak with her privately on the terrace, Tasha's heart was already full. "When he called and said he'd found someone, I heard hope in his voice," he said. "Real hope, for the first time since his mother passed. She would have loved you. Not because you're perfect, but because you make him want to be better. That's all a father can want for his son. I'll take care of his heart," Tasha promised through tears, "and he'll take care of yours." Later, standing in the garden with Jae-won's arm around her waist, Tasha said, "Your family is incredible. They love you. I knew they would." "I can't believe this all started with a balloon." Jae-won turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her waist. "Best decision I ever made, not popping it. You know what's crazy? I almost didn't even go that night. Remind me to thank Dee." He pressed his forehead to hers. "What happens now?" "Now? We keep doing this, building something real. Together." "Together," he echoed, and kissed her softly, like a promise. Inside, visible through the windows, the family watched them. "When's the wedding?" one aunt whispered. "Give them time," the father said. But he was grinning. 2 years, Hana predicted, and I'm the maid of honor. The father laughed, warm and full. "Let them be happy. That's all that matters." But he was already happy too, because his son had finally found what he'd been searching for. Not a strategic match or a convenient arrangement, but real love. In the garden, Jae-won pulled Tasha closer, and she went willingly. "I love you," he murmured against her hair. "I love you too." And somewhere in the Seoul night, a red balloon sat forgotten in a corner of a television studio. A small reminder of the moment everything changed. The moment a CEO chose his heart over every expectation. The moment a nurse took a chance on something impossible. The moment 2 people found exactly what they didn't know they were looking for. If you'd love more stories like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And hit that notification bell so you never miss a new story. Your support truly makes a difference. Now I need to know, would you have said yes to dinner after meeting someone 15 minutes ago on a dating show? Have you ever made a spontaneous decision that completely changed your life? And if you were Jae-won, would you have played it safe with an heiress or taken the risk on the wild card? Leave your answers in the comments. I read them all and truly enjoy hearing what you think. Let me know where you're watching from and what kinds of love stories you enjoy. Thank you for riding every moment of Jae-won and Tasha's journey. From that first balloon to the family dinner that sealed everything. I'll see you in the next story, and trust me, it's one worth staying for. Until then, remember that sometimes the person you're meant to find is standing exactly where you least expect them.